Okay, we're on to our big block Chevy heads, our marine build. What a can of worms I opened up here, and this is kind of all on me. I always, I'm always big on do a proper disassembly, tear down inspection. I dropped the ball on these heads, and it's going to cost me a good bit of labor and a couple dollars. I did a quote on this job. Wasn't really an estimate, more of a quote kind of thing. So I'm not going to go back to the customer and say, hey, look, we need more money. He's already into this thing for way too much. So I'm going to eat that. I'm going to absorb it. It's going to cost me some labor. It's going to cost me a few parts, but it'll all be okay. So, where to start? Okay, first of all, both of the heads for this engine had beautiful rocker arm geometry. The push rods were exactly the correct length. Where they contacted the valve was exactly correct over on this end. I think I have that in the teardown vid. Unfortunately, the rocker studs were not long enough, and they were only grabbing, the lock was only grabbing by about 1/4 inch. So that would have sheared off, would have broke the stud from the leverage, would have stripped the threads off, whatever. Fortunately, that was an easy fix. I just went, to one of my favorite companies, because you guys know how much I love this stuff, and I got 1/4 inch longer studs. So that's a simple fix. The other head is in really nice shape. It's a totally serviceable head. I can bring it right back to OEM specs with just regular basic rebuilding techniques. This one, I'm going to see if we can zoom in on that. We'll be posting a lot of pictures with this anyways. But you can see, I'm going to show it to you on the intake guide, because the exhaust guides are kind of dirty. You can see where the guide here is, and you can see what they've done. Instead of pressing the guide out, they drilled the guide and they pressed another guide into it as a guide rebuild. So I suppose that has a few problems with it. We'll get to that in a minute. But they also did it on the exhaust guide. And what happens on the exhaust is that guide that you press in, that new guide, intersects the water jacket. So you're cooling the valve guide to take some heat away from that exhaust valve. When they drilled that and pressed the guide in, two problems. One problem is they cracked the existing guide when they pressed the new one in. There's not much material left. Now what's happening is the water, when the thing gets up to operating temperature, is running down that cracked guide into the exhaust port. So we have a water leak there. We'll post pictures of that. The other problem that happens now when you do that is when they build these heads, they take the head casting, they drill an approximate hole where the guides are going to go. And then they take a guide, they press the guide into the head. That guide has no hole in it. And then they take a machine and they machine the seat and the hole in the guide in one operation. And I believe they call it gang machining or something. I don't know exactly the terminology for that. But anyways, what happens is when they do that, is it's not drilling evenly into the guide. So this to the hole in the guide is concentric. The outside diameter of the guide is concentric, but the guide itself, the ID of the guide and the OD of the guide are not concentric. So now what happens when you cut to put seats in the thing, or if you press a new guide in, and then you can't do a valve job because this is no longer concentric with your new guide. So you have to go and you have to put seats in, or else you're not going to get your valve height. You're going to grind so much. It's going to be so off. What they've done here was they did the repair where they put the insert in, and then they cut the seat. So now when I go and I put, for the seat insert, sorry. So now when I go and I put my new guides in, the location of the guide is going to be different. The location of the valve is going to be different. I'm going to have to put new seats in it. I can't put the new seats in because they're going to be so far untrue, not concentric, whatever you want to call it, that I'm going to have to recut the counterbore to put the seat in. I don't want to do that. I'm going to have to go to a much bigger seat, and I'm worried I'm going to end up with a thin spot with a few heat cycles. It's going to crack, and we're going to have the whole leakage problem again. So, having said that, oh, okay, now the other thing with this head. This head, as far as I can tell, has been milled 60 thou. The other head's been milled about 10 thou. Even though it's been milled about 60 thou, I don't know if you'll see it on the camera, but there's a lot of pitting outside of where the gasket seals. And a good bit of that pitting is actually inside the ring of the gasket. So we're going to have leakage there. I'm going to have to cut the heads another 20, 30 thou. That's 90 thou. I'm now going to have a thin deck. What do? Do I cut the other head 90 thou? I'm not going to do that kind of damage to a good head casting. To do this right, I have no choice. I have to throw this head casting in the garbage, go into my core pile. Fortunately, I have quite a few of these, and start with a good, fresh casting. Do a total rebuild. Put all new guides in it, proper guides. I'm going to then put proper seats in, all new seats that will now be concentric with the guide. I'm going to have to machine the top for proper valve springs, for the bigger valve springs we're going to use. We'll machine the new guides for proper seals. And then we're going to do some basic porting. In the previous vid, I showed you how I mark for my port matching, so we'll do that. We'll have to mock that up again. We're going to do a little pocket porting here. We're just going to smoothen it out a little bit, make it flow a little bit better. Nothing crazy. Just make it a nice, good marine engine, or possibly an engine for somebody's hot rod. And, well, there we go. I'm going to put this in the garbage pile. I'm going to go put the other head, which is a nice salvageable casting. We're going to go put that in our media blaster now. The thing's going to come out like a brand new casting. We're going to have all the hardware stripped off of it. We're going to build a brand new head. And then we're going to take another casting, build a brand new head, and we're going to document the whole thing. We're going to take a bunch of pictures of this. We'll put the whole thing into a series of vids, into a playlist. Thank you, everyone. It's going to be a long night for me. Okay.